And government of the African Union. The annual AU summit takes place today and tomorrow in Addis Ababa, the Federal Democratic Republic of Ethiopia. It's underway. Let's listen in.
Robust implementation of Agenda 2063. God bless Ethiopia. God bless Africa. Thank you for your attention.
Thank you, Your Excellency. I now invite His Excellency, Mr. António Guterres, United Nations Secretary General, who will address the Assembly via video conference. Thank you.
Excellences, chers invités, Mesdames et Messieurs.
Excellencies, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, my sincere gratitude to you for affording me this opportunity to address the Assembly today and to welcome the Deputy Secretary General, Mrs. Amina Mohammed, who is stepping in for me. Africa is a continent of hope. For the past 20 years, the African Union has contributed to bringing to life this hope to enable the continent attain its full potential. From the CFTA to the recent launching of the Decade of Financial and Economic Inclusion for Women, and also the transformation of food and agricultural systems, cooperation between the African Union and the United Nations Organization is stronger today more than ever before. By the same token, both organizations are working hard to implement the UN 2030 Sustainable Development Goals and Agenda 2063, and this is really a cornerstone in our relationship. Your common vision and your unity of purpose is relevant today. We are living through very difficult times. Injustice is deeply entrenched in global systems, and the African people suffer the most. And because of the unequal distribution of COVID-19 vaccines, the rate of vaccination in the high-income countries is 7 times higher than the vaccination rate in African countries. A morally decadent global financial system has abandoned the African countries, depriving the African people of the necessary investment opportunities, reducing growth prospects, and locking our African countries in an endless spiral of debt and staggering interest rates. The combat against nation and insufficient action to slow down climate change is affecting mostly the most vulnerable. The immoral inequalities is choking the African continent, stoking the embers of conflicts and political, economic, ethnic, social tensions, violation of human rights, violence against women, terrorism, military coups, and also a feeling of impunity. Millions of African people are displaced across the continent, and our democratic institutions are becoming moribund. Our world is in dire need of solidarity. You can count on me and the family of the United Nations to support Africa at a time when we're trying to ignite 4 engines of recovery. Firstly, we need to boost the production of vaccine and vaccination for all. And I actually salute the leadership of the African continent to establish the African Vaccine Acquisition Tax Team, AVAT, and other mechanisms that have actually made it possible for the continent to have 34 million doses of the COVID-19 vaccine. And I am thrilled to hear recently that starting this year, South Africa and other African countries will be manufacturing vaccines. And I'm appealing to all developed countries and other manufacturers to rally their support behind the African AVAT and COVAX mechanisms. It is really necessary I call on all countries to provide necessary conditions to enable us manufacture vaccines in Africa by actually resolving the problem of intellectual property. And I'm calling on the world to brace up for the next outbreak of epidemic by investing in primary health care and also vaccines that will save lives today and tomorrow, and also by supporting the activities of major institutions like the African CDC.
Second, we need to ignite the engine of economic recovery by reforming the global financial system. Achieving the Sustainable Development Goals depends on supporting massive investments in strong health and education systems, in job creation, especially in the green and care sectors, and in universal social protection, gender equality, and opportunities for young people. But the deck is stacked against Africa. Sub-Saharan Africa is facing cumulative economic growth per capita over the next 5 years that is 75% less than the rest of the world. We need to accelerate investment into Africa. We need to deliver real investment resources, including by redirecting special drawing rights to countries that need support now, reforming the international debt architecture for the future, increasing concessional forms of finance, and ensuring that African countries with sound economic fundamentals are not unduly penalized by markets and the ratings institutions. And we need to fuel the immense promise of the Continental Free Trade Agreement. Third, we need to ignite the engine of a green recovery across Africa. Africa contributes just 3% of global greenhouse gas emissions, but many of the worst impacts of climate change are being felt there. To address today's tragic reality, we need a radical boost in funding for adaptation and mitigation on the continent. The Glasgow commitment to double adaptation finance from $20 billion must be implemented. But this is not enough. Access and eligibility systems must be reviewed to allow developing countries to get the finance they need on time. I commend EU member states for ambitious national determined contributions and adopting the African Union Green Stimulus Program. I am committed to working with the global community to match Africa's climate ambitions with the resources, financing, and technologies it needs to accelerate the transition from coal to renewables and create new green jobs. I'm calling on wealthier countries to make good on the $100 billion climate finance commitment to developing countries starting this year, and all to account private sector partners who have made commitments so far. Our planet will speed past the 1.5-degree temperature threshold without steep emission cuts this decade by all major economies. We are in emergency mode, and we need all hands on deck. COP27 in Egypt will be an opportunity for Africa and our world. And fourth, we need to ignite the engine of peace across Africa. Conflicts and violence have many roots, from economic inequalities and competition for scarce resources to ethnic and religious tensions, among others. African states are proudly multi-ethnic, multi-religious, and multicultural. And the EU is about showing how people can coexist, even flourish, by working together. That requires inclusive and participatory structures that speak to this diversity in all its richness through governance that delivers for all. We need to bolster platforms for inclusivity, especially for young Africans. We need connectivity to access information, communication, education, and jobs. The United Nations is committed to working with the African Union to strengthen democratic and responsive governance structures and peoples facing them. This requires leadership on all sides. For example, we have signed an important new framework to ensure the EU peace support operations are planned and conducted in full compliance with international human rights and humanitarian law. Our recent shared commitment to take forward a joint strategic assessment on security in the Sahel to improve our collective efforts is another example. And I reaffirm my appeal for a cessation of hostilities, humanitarian access, and inclusive national dialogue in Ethiopia, the seat of the African Union and a country that is critical to continental stability. And I pledge the full support of my good offices to silence the guns across the continent. from our joint missions and programs to strengthening electoral processes and peaceful transfers of power, to the UN's peacekeeping and peace-building efforts, to our commitment to robust support to African forces and interventions to tackle terrorism across Africa, including my advocacy for the UN Security Council to support the predictable financing of Africa-led operations under Chapter 7. My report on our common agenda offers a fresh opportunity to rethink and reposition our approach to peace in Africa and ensure our peace architecture is fit for purpose to address the rapid shifts and changes we see across the continent and around the world. I encourage your continued engagement as we advance this agenda together. Excelências, não é fácil alcançar a paz, mas a paz é...
Excellencies, peace is not easy to achieve, but peace is absolutely necessary. Let us continue to work together with a common goal in mind with and for the people of Africa. Let us bring to life the words of late Archbishop Desmond Tutu. My humanity is dependent on yours, for only together we are human. As this summit begins, I reiterate that UN is proud to walk this path with you in the struggle for dignity, equality, peace, and justice for all, with solidarity and always guided by a spirit of humanity and hope. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Your Excellency. I now invite His Excellency Dr. Mohamed Shitai, Prime Minister of the State of
All right, those are visuals as incoming President Cyril Ramaphosa. You saw them. There is leading South Africa's participation in the 35th Ordinary Session of the Assembly of the Heads of State and Government of the African Union. We'll try to get back there as soon as we can. The annual AU Summit takes place today and tomorrow in Addis Ababa. The 35th Ordinary Session will also consider, we're told, a range of issues, such as the state of peace and security on the continent, a report on the activities of Peace and Security Council, on the implementation of the AU. You remember it's called Master Roadmap of practical steps to silence the guns in Africa. Also, deliberations will include the election of a new bureau of the AU Assembly for 2022. Also, discussions on AU institutional reforms, the formal adoption and launch of the AU theme for 2022, as well as the appointments to various organs of the Union. Furthermore, we're told that President Ramaphosa will, as the outgoing coordinator of the Committee of Heads of State and Government on Climate Change for a period of 2 years, hands over the chairship to President Macky Sall of the Republic of Senegal during the assembly. That handover, we're told, will happen tomorrow. We'll bring you updates.